Welcome to day 200 of the New Way. Let's see how God stretched Mary and Martha's faith in Him. I'll read John 11:33 through 44. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, He was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. "Where have you laid him?" He asked. "Come and see, Lord," they replied. Jesus wept. Then the Jews said, "See how he loved him?" But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying?" Jesus, once more deeply moved, came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. "Take away the stone," he said. "But Lord," said Martha, the sister of the dead man, "by this time there is a bad odor, for he has been there 4 days." Then Jesus said, "Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone. Then Jesus looked up and said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me." When he had said this, Jesus called in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." The dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen and a cloth around his face. Jesus said to them, "Take off the grave clothes and let him go." Why did Jesus weep? There are several theories. One is that he was sad because the family was sad. The crowd's assumption was that it was because of his great love for Lazarus. Psychologists tell us that much of our grief when we see death is really a realization that we too will die one day. Maybe Jesus was saddened that he would be facing death soon, and he knew that that would cause incredible grief to this same group of friends. Some followers of Jesus say that if our loved one is a follower of Jesus, then we should not grieve, but rejoice. Now, I agree with that statement, but I also know that God designed our bodies to grieve. We grieve for our own mortality, shortness of life, and we grieve for our loss of that relationship here on earth. I'll read 1 Thessalonians 4:13. "Brothers and sisters, we do not want you to be uninformed about those who sleep in death, so that you do not grieve like the rest of mankind who have no hope." Does this verse really say, "Do not grieve"? No. It says, don't grieve like an empty person who has no hope of heaven. Jesus promises that someday we will be reunited together with all our fellow followers of all times in heaven to spend all eternity together. We discuss death for a follower of Jesus on day 157. Grieving is a process that God designed to help your brain and body adjust and heal after a loss. It is important to spend time in grief and take some time to heal deeply. Now I want you to notice John 11:44. I think it's very important. I'll reread John 11:44. The dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen, and a cloth around his face. Jesus said to them, "Take off the grave clothes and let him go." Lazarus looked like a mummy. He was wrapped in cloth strips from head to toe. These cloths had been soaked in spices, about 100 pounds of spices, and wrapped tightly around the body. Did Jesus tell Lazarus to take the strips off? Did Jesus take the strips off? Who did he tell to take the strips off? I believe he was talking to the friends who surrounded him. Remember when we talked about taking care of the little ones? When someone is a new follower of Jesus or comes back to the position of obedience after following self for a period of time, they often are covered in grave clothes. They have old habits and old attitudes that keep them bound. They will find it almost impossible to remove them by themselves. They will need help, and that's the role of fellow followers. So many new followers become discouraged because instead of mature followers helping them to grow and encouraging them, they criticize and condemn them. Our role as fellow followers is to help new or immature followers to take off the old grave clothes and receive all that God has planned for them. I believe that this is a wonderful picture to remind us that little ones need to be unmummified. But it's not just the little ones who must deal with grave clothes. I believe that even old, long-time followers like myself must allow the Holy Spirit and sometimes fellow followers to continually be removing the wrappings that block our view. Our old way of thinking, according to self, our old patterns of doing things, led by self, our prejudices, our traditions, our hang-ups. I am amazed that every few days the Holy Spirit shows me something else that needs to change in my life. He shows me negative words that I've never noticed before. He shows me critical attitudes that must go. The Holy Spirit points out my lack of love or my lack of caring. God's goal is for us to continually remove the things that prevent our obedience and our growth. Our walk with Jesus is meant to be lived in unity with fellow followers. We need those fellow followers to help us recognize grave clothes in our lives. But we also need those fellow followers to be transparent and honest, patient, and compassionate. In his service, Dale.